they sound like. Come on in. So I guess we'll kick off. So thanks for everybody coming in. I know it's a stormy night. You can't plan these things around stormy nights like tonight. So hopefully, I was hoping some more people will be able to make it, but we got a good quality group here. So actually doing these, I'm not going around giving a speech or anything. We want to do it more conversationally where we can talk about the issues that are important to everybody. Last time we kind of did it more reception style. We decided people listen to the customers. We want to be able to sit and talk and move forward. So we could do a round table like this, or whatever. But the way the room's set up, you can't really move these benches around. So I'll stand. But I like to talk about what anybody wants to ask or talk about, or I'm just here to answer your question. Farm bill,
immigration, farm bill, immigration, lack of gun control, opioid crisis. Just
let me go through those. Let's start with the farm bill. So the farm bill, I think we'll vote it out in June, end of June, we hope. I know it's got to be done in law by September.
You're going to get the immigration thing straightened out?
Well, that's what we're working on now. So the story of the farm bill, the farm bill is divided in it, so people who aren't into the agriculture world. The farm bill is divided two ways. One, about 20% of the farm bill is actual farm policy, which is most of the farm bill, but the money side is farm policy, and the other 80% of it is nutrition programs, food stamps, school lunches, and a lot of things such as that. And so in this farm bill that we brought forward, we want to put a requirement that people who are able-bodied between 18 and 59 without a child at home, so single, no child at home, between 18 and 59, able to work. If you're going to receive food stamp, you should work.
With 4% unemployment.
And people are begging for workers. You're absolutely right. Absolutely, that's even the best time. The best time to have them working is when unemployment's low. So we put a work requirement, and I thought it was fair. It's not everybody. I had a lady came to me who's from ARP, said, well, what's it going to do with the older people? I said, well, okay, I know you can be an ARP when you're in your 50s, because I'm in my 50s, but I think somebody that's 59 should work. And so we had a work requirement, and also, as they estimated in the Congressional Budget Office, that people who were required to work would work themselves off food stamps, that it would actually save money, and we took the month savings in the Farm Bill and put them into job training. So not just go out and find any job, but job that's a skilled job, and have the training available to do that. I thought it was a very good proposal. And I think, matter of fact, I think 75% of America thought it was a good proposal, according to some polling that I saw, but we couldn't get anybody on the other side to support it. So the Farm Bill has typically been a bipartisan bill. But because of the work requirements for food stamps, Speaker Pelosi had her 193 members vote no. So we had to pass it just with the Republican votes only. And they got into a discussion, not in the Farm Bill, but on a separate immigration issue, particularly dealing with the kids, DACA kids. And so we weren't able to put together the majority to do that. Currently, there's a group looking at the DACA, we can talk about that too, the DACA proposal. And the Farm Bill separate from that. There is a proposal by Bob Goodlatte in immigration beyond what the president asked for with the DACA proposal that would allow more agriculture, visas for agriculture, where people don't have to do it just seasonally. They can work. I know dairy has issues because cows just don't plant in the spring and harvest in the fall. They're every day. And you can't take advantage of a lot of the agriculture programs if you're daily production agriculture. That's animal production agriculture. So there's some movement in that. So where I'm on DACA, I think we should deal with it and fix it. But if you think about what DACA stands for, it's Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals. That's what it stands for. So a lot of people don't know what DACA even stands for. And so what happened a few years ago, President Obama said, as the all executive authorities vested in the President of the United States, he says, well, I'm going to use my executive authority and all the legislative authorities in Congress, except the President signs the bills, you do the checks and balances. And what he said was, I'm not going to enforce the law on people who came here below a certain age. So it didn't make them legal. So somebody who's here as a DACA person isn't legally present to be here. They're just told they won't be punished. And so what President Trump said, he goes, I've got to enforce the law. So I'm going to enforce the law, which I think is the right position to have. I think the President of the United States should enforce the law. And you don't think he should? I think he should.
It's funny. hypocritical for him to be talking.
But it should enforce the law, and if, and we in Congress should be the ones to change the law. And so we came up with, I thought, a pretty generous proposal on DACA. If you think about it, so there's about 700,000 kids that have registered under DACA. There's about another 700 to 800,000, they think, they're not really sure, that never registered because they were concerned about coming out of the shadows, putting their name out there. And so our President Trump, much to the surprise of a lot of people, and me as well, said that he's willing to have all 1.5 million with a pathway to citizenship. And that's far beyond what President Obama even proposed for these kids. But he said, I want to fix the problem. I want to spend money on the wall or border security, whichever that comes out to be. If it's a physical wall or not border security. We need to fix chain migration, because if we all of a sudden make 1.5 million people legal, then all of a sudden they can reach out and bring extended family members here. That's counterproductive. And then there's one, just the visa lottery. You just get to come here because you won the lottery. There should be some skills moving
You
forward.
mentioned that wall. You think that's a feasible project?
I think border security, we need to secure our border.
The wall.
Depends on, there's certain parts of our border that need a wall. There's some areas that you can't cross anyway. There's some open desert there, some private land. There's some reasons to deal with that. But I absolutely think we should have control on who comes and who doesn't
Well,
come.
nothing wrong with securing.
Because I'm not for open borders. I'm not for open borders at all. I think we have to have a secure border. So that's being talked about now. Hopefully, they say there may be a vote on that in about the third week of June, in the Farm Bill at the same time. Opioids, he's brought, so I don't know, anybody want to bring up, go ahead and the list. Opioids, there's 57 bills dealing with opioids right now that have passed out of my subcommittee that I'm on. It's a subcommittee and committee. There's no silver, I wish there was a silver bullet. I mean, we can pass, they're already illegal. It's illegal to buy heroin, it's illegal to divert prescription drugs. So making them illegal they're already illegal. And so the question, so there's a couple of things that we're trying to deal with. These, so what do you have, 57 bills, right? There are certain things that we found in moving forward is that we had a hearing. You guys, I saw you come in the back. I see you. We saw, we've had a bunch of hearings. And we had one group that had 10 sets of parents that each had a child that died of an opioid epidemic. And to start with, every single one of them said their kids started with recreational marijuana. Every one of them said that. Every one of them, not everybody using recreational marijuana becomes a heroin addict. But every one that they talked to heroin addict started with recreational use of marijuana. So for some reason we're having this big fight on opioids that everybody's engaged in, and there's another almost speaking out of the same side of their mouth saying, but we need to make marijuana legal, which I don't support that. So we had these 10 families. So this kind of stuff we're addressed. There was one parents, just breaks your heart when you hear the story. They had a 19-year-old son who had gone out of state to college. They were paying his tuition, they're on their health insurance, and they died of an overdose. And so they went to make arrangements to take the body back, and they found out he had gone to the emergency room 7 times. That was his 8th trip to the emergency room. But they were never notified because of HIPAA violations. And so there was no legal way for the medical community to call the parent and say, because the 19-year-old was an adult. So we're dealing with things such as that. I have a specific bill called Comprehensive Opioid Recovery Centers. So people who, one of the big things I think that's what, just to tell the overall story of that, and I made some adjustments in my thinking too, by going through this process. Not everybody that takes an illegal drug is necessarily a criminal. And I think we've treated everybody that does illegal drugs as a criminal. And so if you change the addiction, you change the criminal behavior. Now, some people are just criminals and they need to be put away, but we don't just need to throw everybody in prison and throw away the key. That's kind of the big changes coming out of this.
It's a big pharma though, isn't it? You know, some people are trying to say that big pharma is a whole lot the reason that
Well, there's a lot of it, and we had a hearing based on what you said. We had all the CEOs of not the pharmaceutical, but the people that distribute, like Emerson, Cardinal Health, that actually distribute these. And there's an example. There was a pharmacy in West Virginia, in a town of 400 people, that distribute over 7 million pills. And yeah, they should be held accountable for it. Because these people shipping them there should be accountable for it. The pharmacy board in West Virginia should be able to count it. You got a pharmacy that's licensed by the state. You got physicians that are licensed by the state. But the federal side of it is you've got these, for interstate commerce, you've got these pharmaceutical distributors moving massive amounts of drugs into areas they know that can't be consumed by the local population. So they're being diverted. They have to know that. But they were following the law, they're following the prescription, so that's what we're trying to change, that they're going to be held accountable for it. You can't go retro, but you can go forward on it.
I come up here with 4 things to cover.
Let me finish my bill on opioids, and then we did 3 already. So opioid side of it is what we found out too, or I found out, or we did, is that there's about 3 basic different treatments for opioid addiction. There is the old 12-step, and it works for some people. It's the 12-step, abstinence only. You get the medallions when you reach certain points, and you do it through peers, and you do it through encouraging each other. And that works for some people. There's another one is the buprenorphine, methadone, where you get just enough to take the edge off so you don't desire the harder stuff, but you still are medically treated. The third one is another medical treatment. It's called, the most famous one's Vivitrol, that keeps you from, that I believe in, if it really works, if we can prove it to work, that actually blocks your desire to use heroin. So if you're on Vivitrol, you have no urge to use heroin or opioids. And so, but the question is, what treatment do you get? It depends on where you show up. Somebody may say, my kid's got this problem, oh, they need to go to this. Well, they may show up at a 12-step when Vivitrol is the right thing. They may show up at a methadone clinic where they could do it on the 12-step. And so what we're looking at, how do you put that into one center that people get the treatment based on, and we have centers, they probably are centers, and when I tell you what we have, that we found out that are in business just to keep people in their centers. I said like centers, but centers. And so we had a lady on one of those 10, her son had gone to it's usually people that have good insurance or people that have a lot of money. They get marketed to them and they send their kids to, most of them are in Florida, West Palm Beach kind of area, and they send their kids down there and think they're getting all this treatment, and all they're doing is shove them from one center to the other, and so we're trying to cracking down on that. But mine is that, so what we learned is that you go in and your treatment is going to be appropriate to what you respond to. The second thing, that you just can't put them out. You got to lead them to work, because most people who leave for a job don't relapse at the same rate as people who don't go to work. But there are people out there going, yeah, but they're felons or whatever, and so we're trying to relax that, where we treat people differently. We don't have that same attitude, so that they can go to work. They can, matter of fact, I think that'd be the best for somebody who's on probation. If they go to work and they get things, they show up for work every day, we train them, and we train them for the skills, and hopefully correct their life and get them on the right path. But that's a big part of what we're doing on opioids. So you had guns, you're talking about guns in the school system.
Kids are still dying. We had a discussion about it 2 years ago, and kids are dying, but nothing that I know of anywhere has happened.
Well, in the omnibus section, there were some things in. Now, it's not restricting guns. I'm not saying that. But in the omnibus, there was 2 things specific to that. One was about $1.2 billion put into called the Safe Schools Act. That is for people to go assess. Well, there was 3 things really done in it. One was the Safe School Act. That was to allow schools to assess their system. The kid in Florida actually pulled the security system, the fire alarm, because he knew that it would lock down the school. So it overrode. He pulled the fire alarm because you pull a fire alarm, you don't want every door to be locked, because you want to be able to get out if there's a fire. So we pulled the fire alarm so it couldn't lock down the school. So those are the things there. The second thing is the way that we monitor, and you can report if you have suspicious behavior, so it can go the way the FBI reacts to it. Come on in. And because what we found in Florida particularly, the FBI was all over this guy, but they never took any action on it. And so the third thing that was specifically in the omnibus was looking at our background check system. And the person in Florida, the person who shot this church in Charleston, the person who shot in Texas that was in the Air Force, not the most recent one in Texas, was on the list. But they should have been on the list, or on the list, but because of the way that we do our federal agencies were operating the list, they never came up on the list. And so those are things. I'd be open to discussing after the Florida thing, 21, to buy. I think that if people So people say, what if somebody wants to go hunt with their parent? Have a parent sign and let them get a rifle if they want to go hunting with their parent. The bump stock, that makes us, so you can't own an automatic weapon. So I think it makes sense to not own a piece of equipment that makes a weapon automatic. And so somebody said that you can easily make one, but if you make them illegal, they're illegal. Not saying that people can't do things illegally, that's the problem you get, but at least they're illegal. And so there was the bump stock, that, and I'm okay to talk. I think that we should have a fair discussion on high capacity magazines. I think that's, because the thing that happens in school when they have to change their magazines, when they usually take them and move forward. But all of that wouldn't have stopped what just happened in Texas. The kid was 17, so he was not legally to buy a weapon. He didn't have a shotgun. It was a shotgun, so it was a hunting rifle. And so that's the thing. There's more to it than just restricting people's right to have a
My point is, nothing is happening.
Well, the three things I just said to you did happen. It's signed by the president. It's in law.
Okay.
But the things I did say, now the first three, the Safe Schools Act, the gives more latitude to the police to react quicker. Because the old thing with, I know we have some police officers here that, well, we can watch you, but if you commit a crime, we're not going to be able to react to it. We did give some power to the FBI to do that. And the third thing was the background check system being more rigorous. And then the other things, the 21, the high capacity magazine, the bump stock are currently, I think they're currently illegal. So there's a group of us who sent a letter to the ATF to say enforce that. I think that's.
Have we thought about, I'm a retired teacher, and so have we thought about just doing security for schools like we do the courthouses? Just have one entrance in and one entrance out, and have a scanning system, where they have to go through and see if there's any metal detector, any guns.
Well, I know a lot of that would be state and local to do, but we did put, so the part of the money in the omnibus, something called the Safe Schools Act, is do that assessment if that's the right thing, that if schools want to do that, to give the resources for schools to do. But that wouldn't be a Washington to say every school's got to do it, but each school system or each state could do that.
It just seems like that way you wouldn't have to worry about who had a gun and who didn't.
Yeah.
You would know if they came through with it.
I think in the Florida situation, they actually did have a single point of view. They didn't have the, but the person pulled the fire alarm.
Okay.
And it opened the doors, because you have a lot of other doors, but only one entry, and because you don't want everybody locked down if there's a fire. I mean, it makes sense, but now that he got around this, he knew where the people would come out. I mean, he had, and the FBI knew that he was. They didn't know he was going to do that. I'm not putting that on the FBI, but the FBI knew that he was a problematic person. Yeah.
I just thought, making
But
sure we had security.
we did put money, I think it was $1.2 billion in the omnibus to assess that and let schools make that decision to move
I think
forward.
that would just.
Where do you teach?
Well, I'm a retired teacher.
Okay.
I started out in Bowling Green, and then I worked at Breckenridge County.
So you were in Bowling Green before, weren't you? Which school did my kids were at?
No, I wasn't. I worked with juveniles at Lincoln. So, day treatment center at Lincoln.
Thank goodness we didn't go down there and rush the great center.
Non-robbery. Yeah, so I had different ones there. And then I taught at Breckenridge County, and then I retired from Kentucky and went to Indiana and taught for about.
Okay, oh, good.
So, but in Bowling Green, I didn't. You
didn't teach
I would not
in the
have been
post.
your children. Yeah.
Well,
Hopefully.
I'm blessed that way. But things happen to folks. So.
I want to thank you for addressing my concerns, and I don't want to monopolize that.
No, I enjoy seeing
I don't
you.
shut up.
Hopefully we'll get a farm bill and immigration vote in June.
Okay.
And the opioids bill will be the second week of June. And the president has said he's going to come out in a couple of weeks with some proposals on the schools. So we'll see. I don't know what specific that is, but he said that yesterday or the day before. He's coming out with a proposal in the next couple of weeks on schools. So maybe maybe you're for. Maybe not to the exact way that you want them done, but it'd be, people will look and address them. Yes.
My name is Charlie Holbert. I live in New Haven.
Okay.
And regarding her question she had about, I got in a tail end of this. Do you know how many school districts in the United States do have the security like they have here at this building here?
I don't know.
Metal detectors. There's quite a few states that allow that. And
I don't know if Kentucky allows it or not. I don't
well,
know.
what I'd like to, just part of the conversation here, I just like to know how they're doing, the ones that do that. Because I kind of on the same track she is. If you can keep the gun from ever entering the state property, and that's a tough challenge there, but
Yeah.
they do it in this building right here.
Yeah, I don't know the number of that. And that's, like I said, we put, so I don't know if you caught that part, money in the omnibus that passed last spring. There was 1.2.
But did you say that was local, that could be done?
Well,
local?
that's federal money to help states and local communities do the assessment. And then I don't think that that's federal money could be, well, you could do grants, but directly, but most of the safety and security in the school law is state and local law.
So like at Nelson County, at the county school board meeting, somebody stood up and said, how many signatures is it gonna take to get something on this track of thinking to be either yay or nay?
I assume that. What I don't know the answer to that is there a state law that prohibits that? There's not a federal law that prohibits that. Does Frankfurt allow that to happen? I assume so. I assume a state school, a local school board could do that if that's what they so choose. I don't know why they couldn't.
I think it's kind of deep, don't it?
Well, I just don't know if there's a state law that prevents that. I just don't know that, but I don't think there is. I would be, I don't think so. We got somebody to get back to Senator Higdon, so we'll find out. He was supposed to be here, but I think the storms got bad down in Marion County.
He was up in Frankfurt, actually.
Oh, was in Frankfurt? I had a meeting today, so he was going to try to get back, he said, for it. But we can get the answer to that.
Well, I just retired and...
What'd you do before?
Well, I worked 51 years on a schedule. I wound up working my last 17 years in maintenance down at the post office on Gardner Lane.
Okay.
But I've worked in chemical plants in Western Kentucky, down in Paducah.
Okay. Calvert City, that area.
Yeah. All over. I've really, Henryville Machine Company, Vegetable Refrigerator. Been in maintenance my whole life. The reason I came over here tonight, does somebody else have a question?
No, we're here talking, we just opened the floor. The floor is open.
Well, you're looking at a person that has been on this idea that I'm going to mention here in a minute for 40 years.
Okay.
I was on the radio in Paducah in 1979.
On the radio?
On the radio. I think the majority leader of the Senate was Senator Lowe.
Okay.
And you may not...
The state senate or the federal?
No,
Okay.
the Senate.
In 79?
Yeah, he'd be Mitch McConnell's same. But anyway, I remember at the time, if we just went over $1 trillion when Mr. Reagan got elected. It was $995 billion. Of course, that was a huge. Everybody was talking about it. And that's when the recession, or the interest rates were like 15 to 20%. And nobody was selling cars. Nobody was selling mobile homes. It was really bad. You remember those days?
Oh, yeah, I remember. I'm a teenager, but I remember.
Well, I got on the radio, and there was a big deal on the TV, which was how everybody got their information about like they do today, about what to do about the national debt. It was a grave concern then.
Still is.
Exactly, and that's why I came here tonight. My last question, but I talked about 30 minutes on the program was how to get rid of the national debt. And I got on there and I told them who I was. I was a first-class maintenance mechanic at Allied Signal in Metropolis, Illinois. The reason I came on there is we have a whole lot of elected officials in Washington. Senator Lowe, they couldn't come up with an answer on how to get rid of the debt. Nobody had that. It was very political. Well, I got on there and it was a talk show and they asked me how to get rid of the national debt. I mean, how would I do it? And I wrote Mr. Reagan a letter, a 6-page letter. I sent Wendell Ford one. And Mr. Reagan actually sent me a personal letter back concerning. I'm so sorry I lost it. I'll read it to you tonight. But it was, I don't want to take up, how long are you going to be here?
We got an hour.
Well, I'm going to, my whole...
You want to just, you can send me the information you want, but I'm sure people want to hear, but I want to make sure.
No, the real reason is our $25 trillion debt. That's why I came here tonight to see why isn't it on the forefront? Why isn't it talked about? It's not a political, Democrat or Republican issue. It's an American issue. And but anyway, let me get back to my talk show.
Okay.
30 minutes. I'll try to go through it real quick.
Okay.
But I told him I'm just an average American citizen that goes to work every day, Saturdays and Sundays, working all the time. But I had an idea how to get rid of the national debt. And I to give them a lot of, for instances, like from the conception of this country, we had to have help from actually individuals. I mean, people. Washington, D.C. really didn't solve a whole lot of anything. It was the people. When he really got the dire straits, the people did it. And you go through the Revolutionary War, how we asked the French and this and that. Then the Civil War, the South, they had to actually come out to your house and ask you for money for the war effort. And then, I'm going to speed things up here a little bit. 1976, this state right here has it on their Kentucky tax reforms. You can give all or part of your Kentucky refund to the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. And that's been continued on and on. And that amount is posted in like March of the following year. And then the federal government did it in about 1988. You could give all or part of your federal refund back to the direct reduction of the national debt. Now that's...
So that's what you're proposing?
No, I was just giving them, for instance, how the people really got rid of all the problems in this country. Even World War II, the people had to go fight and die for this country. The people do it. Washington, D.C. does not do it.
Well, you can't pay it unless you take it from somebody.
Well,
yeah, you're right.
But anyway, I said, now look, I'm just a maintenance mechanic out here. And I have an idea which will never under any circumstances be implemented.
Well, maybe let's just hear it.
Well, that's what I'm kind of, it took me 30 minutes and I wanted to build up, but I must have said that I am an average citizen. This will never be implemented, but I do have an idea, and mathematically it will work.
Okay.
So he wanted to hear about it. I said, okay, you cannot continue to go in debt like this. Now, why doesn't the federal government come up with a authorized plan in conjunction with the Internal Revenue Service that people can donate and get rid of the debt? Give, like Wilson Chevrolet in 1979, if Bill Wilson down there thought he was selling 3 cars a month. Now, how much money, if he give $10,000, if he thought he could sell 25 cars next month, I had people at Metropolis, at Allied Signal was going to give me $500 if I got it. Give me $500 to do it, if it would work. But
So you're saying to volunteer to pay off the national debt is what you're...
No, wait a minute. What I would do, if you give a $10,000, say, or anybody in here, the next year, you'll get a 10% credit right off of your taxes. You're actually you can't give it all back next year. You'd be in the same boat you were starting with. But you could go 20 years and make it 5%, but it would be like a ticker tape thing up there in New York Square where they got the ongoing national debt. And it'd be on TV every night. What people give in businesses, the interest that we pay on that debt.
It's bigger than the military.
They could build them bridges down there and they wouldn't cost a penny to go to Indiana or vice versa.
Yeah. So let me kind of answer. So the debt...
But my question here tonight is, why isn't the national debt out in the forefront, same as opioids and maybe hacking? And
Well, it is, and I'll tell you, the problem, the issue with the national debt, the biggest issue with the national debt is the way that we budget in Washington. So when we do the annual appropriations bill, so when the government shuts down because we don't do this or continue resolution, all that, there's 12 separate bills. One's the military, one's the veterans, one's military construction, Homeland Security. The rest would be like State Department. Although those are 12 bills. That's 1/3 of our national budget, what we spend, and that's what we do every year. So what we've had, and I know the omnibus came, so I'll explain that, but we've had since 2010 when my party took control of the House of Representatives, we made it a top priority. We reformed Medicare. Of course, it never got signed into law, and even President Obama back then would say, we got a debt problem, but it's in the long term, not the short term. And we're saying, but if you keep piling up, it is a long-term, short-term, and long-term problem. So we ended up with the member sequester. We actually brought the military down to where our Air Force is to the point smallest it's ever been. The Navy is. So of the 1/3 we spend every year, half of that's the military.
I know.
So 2/3 of the budget is driven by Social Security,
I know.
Medicare, Medicaid.
You're not speaking,
And the debt.
I know the is people may not be up to what you just said, but
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, no, you follow, I got more people here
Okay, I know you do. I know.
Yeah.
But here, in another.
So you got to deal with the growth in
That's
that,
it.
the
I know.
entitlement side of the budget.
Now, we just passed a bill that cost us $1.3 trillion.
That's the, half of that's the military. Yep. that's
No, the
100%.
tax
Oh.
bill, tax relief.
You know,
bill.
more money's coming in than was predicted, though. Well, I don't think that's an accurate number. More money is coming in so what the Congressional Budget Office does, to be fair, they say, if you're gonna cut taxes by X amount of dollars, therefore your deficit is gonna go up by X amount of dollars. What it doesn't factor in, if you cut taxes by X amount of dollars, and you have more money in your pockets, and you go spend it, the economy's gonna grow, and more money's gonna come in, and we're seeing that happen. That is actually, we're gonna get an updated number on that in about 3 months. I think you're gonna be pleased with it.
Can you say with the track record over the last 25 years that that's going to come to play?
I think whenever we've had lower
What-
tax rates, more money's come in. I mean, that's just
I know
about,
you
we've
can
had
hit a
more
button, you
revenue.
can hit a button at your office up there and find out what the Internal Revenue Service brings in that month.
You can.
I know you can.
And we're seeing it higher than was expected.
Well-
And they're gonna adjust their numbers on that. That's
I cannot
what I'm
say
quoting
passing
to.
I can see in that bill, now I haven't read it, which nobody in here probably has, and I don't know if you've read
I
it.
didn't read it.
Well, what my deal is, I have no problem with giving corporate income tax more competitive percentage of taxes. But to give me a tax break, I don't need it. And why would you want to pass 1.3 trillion on to our grandchildren?
Well, what I'm saying is we grow out of that. That the 1.3 trillion. There's going to be, that was the estimate when we cut that level of taxes. So the Congressional Budget Office has a static score that says if you're going to lower the tax rates 1.3 trillion, they don't give you any credit for growing the economy. You said we're 4% unemployment now, probably going to grow over 3% this year. We haven't grown over 3% since 2010. So, I mean, I want to make sure we get to more. I know we can argue that.
Well, no,
but
I'm
will
not
tell you-
arguing. I really
This
would
guy-
like to know how many seniors would I, Charlie Halbert at New Haven, have to go door to door in this country to get for our federal government to actually have to go by a budget and stick to it and a direction on some course to get that debt. Now you know as well as I'm sitting here, that debt's went up just like I said,
Oh, absolutely.
19, and it don't matter whether you're there, he's there, she's there, that thing's going up. Now is there any way that you could think to get to go in the other direction?
Well, so in the repeal and replace of Obamacare that we did in the House, it didn't pass the Senate. We did change the growth. We didn't cut Medicaid. The growth of Medicaid, $880 billion. We are looking at the Farm Bill has the food stamp program to be reformed. That people that are able-bodied and can work. We have the House a couple years ago, not this budget, has reformed Medicare for people that are younger. And so, yeah, we have done those things.
Well,
Now, until they're signed into law, it doesn't matter, does it? So it's going to take the president
I'm
and the
sure
Senate.
conversing with me because I've had a little issue about Mr. McConnell, and I've written your office twice and never got a response.
Well, I apologize.
Well, I know
We'll
you,
make sure.
and I know you're busy, and everybody
Well,
you talk to wants to talk about money. But let me just ask you, what number do you think that this country is in dire straits? What trillion dollar number would you have to say?
I think we are now.
Yeah,
I think we are now.
Okay.
And Paul Ryan was saying when he became speaker, he said this. He goes, "We're facing a crisis. It's coming. We don't know when it's going to hit,
Well-
but it is coming, and it's the biggest crisis we can avoid."
That's exactly right.
If we deal with Medicaid, which we tried to do, the Senate didn't pass it, unfortunately. We're trying to deal with the food stamp issue, the growth in that side of the budget. The President of the United States, for the next 2 years, says he will not reform Medicare. He says he promised the people he wouldn't touch Medicare. He's not going to touch it, not going to change it. We're only talking about changing it for people in the future and preserving it for people who are already on it, because you can't expect somebody 85 years old to go back and work because they retired based on what was promised. And there are a lot of people through all the years that promise things that are difficult to deliver, and we have to figure out how to get it right sized. But let me make sure there's some more questions, and we'll get back on.
I really
I'm
want
not here to cut you off, but I want to
Well,
make sure.
I know.
I don't want to. I like talking about it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. In
But-
my opinion, if I was a president, that's the first thing I could do is 3 of them: the opioids,
We're dealing with that next week.
national debt, And
Absolutely.
either a terrorist or somebody would all be number three. But that
But
national
the
debt-
president has said that Social Security and any change in Social Security or Medicare, which is the biggest spending of the budget,
Right, yeah.
is off the table for the next 2 years. So hopefully, if he gets reelected, he'll say, I'll do it in my second term, whatever, because we're going to have to deal with it, because Medicare actually goes bankrupt. And we know it's coming, and that's the crisis.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, that,
we
my
know
same
it's
point,
coming.
my same point to the national, are we on Grease's sled down the greasy slope?
I
I mean-
we're heading that way.
That's exactly right. And I don't care
And
who's
it's less painful, and look at what's going on in the state. It's less, the sooner you solve it,
That's exactly
Just
right.
the less
That's why I
painful
come
it is
over
to solve.
tonight.
Yeah.
Now, how many signatures is there a law, about a
well, I don't know how many,
I don't
23
either.
would be a lot of people.
You know, I can do that locally for something here in the state.
Yeah.
But why can't the people, they want this debt, they don't want to see it going to, it's really 4 or 5 trillion more than what it actually states, right? Because of the Federal Reserve money they.
Well, it's the
pumped in there.
unobligated money for Social Security and stuff like that.
I know.
It's bigger than,
Well, I
the
say
20 trillion is what we owe. There's more unobligated.
There's 4 or 5 trillion that the Reserve put back the low interest rates since 2008.
Well, low interest.
Well, anyway.
Let me make sure, and I'll get back to you.
Okay,
Make sure we get
okay.
other things. Yes.
Okay, you just brought up unfunded liabilities. Some leading economists have said that it's between 75 and 135 billion, or 135 trillion total, including all the unfunded liabilities. Do you agree with that analysis?
I don't know, I mean, I don't have that exact number. I know it's far, so 20 trillion is what we.
Actually.
Oh, that's what we actually owe to pay back. You hear different numbers. It's a substantial number.
What would you put it at?
I don't have an exact number. I can't give you an exact number.
In-
So, I wouldn't doubt it's as high as you said.
And why an omnibus versus passing a regular budget?
Well, so a regular budget also is, so the omnibus is only the 1/3 of the budget. Half of that's the military. So why do an omnibus instead? It is frustrating. I know the House is frustrated with doing omnibus. So 2/3 of the budget is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest on the debt, food stamps, and those kind of programs that aren't appropriated every year. So the other stuff that's the omnibus is the military and just other programs that the day-to-day operation of the federal government. And so half of the 1/3 is the military. And so those are divided into 12 specific spending bills. The House did pass 12. We did all 12 in committee, 12 on the floor. We did bundle them together to go to the Senate in one. We actually put them in 2 bills. The Homeland, so this kind of ties where the National Security was in one bill and we put the other. And the reason is the Senate has these arcane rules that any one senator can demand 30 hours of debate on any bill, even if you have 60 votes. Any one senator can demand, and currently Chuck Schumer's demanding debate on everything that comes through. And so that's about a week worth of Senate time. So the Senate would have to take 12 weeks to pass 12 bills just by using their rules. And so we put them into bills. So it goes to the Senate. So we pass our 12. They go to the Senate, and we're waiting for the Senate to send them back, at least the military side of it, at least fund the military. But Chuck Schumer would not give 60 votes for it. And his argument was, I want to spend more domestically. And so we were holding that back because of the stuff that you're talking about. Now the real money, I mean the real growth in the budgets over here, I'm a baby boomer, we're all retiring. And we know that we've been known it's coming for 20 years. Both parties have known it's coming. And until 2011, there's really no big effort to fix it. So anyway, so we got to September, and we did a continuing resolution until December, just to keep funding the government at its current level without shutting down the government. So we got to December, and the tax bill was coming. We didn't really know when that was going to come, kind of get to fruition, and it kind of came about that time. So we decided to do another continuing resolution till January, because we wanted to get the tax bill done and not have the two things collide with each other, I guess. So this is how it happened. So we get to January, and that's when Chuck Schumer said he's not going to give 60 votes for anything because of DACA, if you remember. So we had that 2 or 3 day shutdown. They gave 60 votes to continue a resolution to get to a discussion what became the omnibus. And so what happened is to deal with the debt, as you were talking about, we've been squeezing this 1/3 of the budget, half in the military, to the point where General Mattis says we really can't compete now. He said, I've got an Air Force the smallest it's ever been, Navy smallest since the Korean War. We had more people killed in training than combat. We had 27 people killed in combat, 80-something in training this, 87, 24 in combat, 87. Fortunately, we're not getting as any lives. It's awful, but we're not getting as many in combat now, but we had more in training. You know, airplanes that crashed, helicopters that crashed, boats that ran into things. I mean, it's just the train, and they said that we just, by squeezing that 1/3, because we can't get any action on the other side, we've just really put the military in shape. So there was a move to say we've got to relieve that pressure on the military. And we couldn't get a bill out of the Senate unless we gave in on the domestic spending side. We held out, that's why we had the continuing resolutions and the president, everybody negotiated. So what they finally agreed to is for every $2 in military spending increase, they'll give $1 on the domestic, which went outside of the budget caps, which is part of sequestration, to get the, that was what we kind of forced on in 2011, 2012, to try to get at least some of it under control. And the president agreed to it, although after he said he may veto it after we did it, but they were part of the White House was actually calling members of the House to vote for it. So we voted, and because of the military side of it, I was for. But of the domestic side, $20 billion was in infrastructure that the president wanted. $9 billion was for national use of health and opioid research and moving forward. 1.2 was what we're talking about, the School Safe, the Stops Violence in Schools Act. So there was some spending, and some of it offset, but some of it added to the debt to get that bill out. And so the president said he's not going to go through that process again. He's not going to go through an omnibus again. He's not going to sign anything like that again, which, and I'm not talking about, I know Robert's here with our senators, I'm talking about ours, but hopefully that will force the Senate to take action on the individual spending bills. I don't think they can do 12, just the way their calendar works.
And just one question about the tax cuts.
Okay.
It's been stated by certain people that part of the increases for the upper tier, upper income people are going to stay permanent, while the lower ends are going to expire. Is that?
Well, the personal income taxes expire. I think all of them do. And it was because of the way the Senate rules work in the reconciliation. What is permanent that doesn't expire is the corporate side.
So it was reduced from 30, was 35?
It was 35, which was highest anybody in the world, and it went to 21. So it stays permanent at 21. And
corporations got a permanent tax break while the people get temporary tax break.
if Chuck Schumer would deliver 10 Democrats, it'd be permanent tomorrow. It takes 60 votes to make those permanent, and we can't get any.
So he voted for the corporate?
No, that was done on a called a reconciliation bill. It was only Republicans that voted for it. There were no Democrats that voted for the tax bill.
So
I don't think any of the House.
Republicans could vote for the permanent corporate tax, but only temporary for us.
According to the Senate rules, I'm not sure exactly why, that's how they had to structure that. And if they could get 60 votes for the individuals, they could do it this summer. They could do it this summer. It takes 60 votes to make the
Why didn't you
individuals.
start off with that? If you're wanting to change the tax bill, so it will be permanent, but you didn't write it, so it's permanent.
Well, we
Right.
did in the House. We did in the House. All the taxes were from the House.
Them when you all could have written it like that to start with.
Well, so there's a process called reconciliation that you use to reconcile the budget that
You
allowed.
passed that thing so fast, people didn't have time to read it. It was written.
The tax bill?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I did.
They flew it out there.
Oh, no, it'd been out of the House for a long time. And
Yeah,
in the
but
Senate.
did any Democrats even see it?
They had access to it. I don't know if they read it or not. I couldn't tell you. I mean, they did. I mean, you can say they didn't, but they did. Yeah, hey, Judge.
Congressman, just
Yep.
a comment. If I want to go back to the debt service that Jim was talking about in the front row there. If you go back and look at history, and I've done a little of that, probably need to do a little bit more of that. The national debt has gone up and down since 1900 going forward. And the real a big jump in the national debt happened in 1981. And that was on the Ronald Reagan administration, and it worked, because after the 8 years that President Reagan served, then the economy started booming again, and things got kind of back on track. And then all of a sudden, I think when President Obama, under the George Bush administration, 8 years of George Bush, then the national debt went up over $7 trillion, I think, under his administration.
I wasn't here, I don't know the exact number, but it went up. It substantially went up.
But you study the numbers, and so they kept escalating. Of course, under President Obama, when he took over, it was about 10 trillion at the time. And so just the interest alone
It's gonna be bigger than military spending.
is what's killing it.
You're right, and we have to reform the entitlement side of the budget. That's where the money is. And we have to do it, and we voted to do it. Now, Dick Armey went to a speech to him, he says, it's not enough to say, well, I voted to fix it, and it doesn't get fixed, and then everything falls apart. So currently, the president says, dealing with Social Security and Medicare is off the table.
He's not worried about national debt.
Well, he made a commitment that he wouldn't.
Filing bankruptcy 7 or 8 times.
Well, he made a commitment that he was. Well, he made a commitment he wasn't going to change Social Security and Medicare, and he says he's not going to. So that's and I'm not proposing changing for people on it or near it or approaching it. But if somebody's younger, when Social Security was passed in the 1930s, you retired at 65. The average life expectancy was 62. Now, thank goodness, because of all the pharmaceutical stuff that's coming out in the healthcare system, people are living in their 80s and 90s, and so we're going to have to look at how we.
So like the state's not had to do the retirement.
Well, the biggest driver of our debt right now is baby boomers retiring. We knew it was coming. It started in people born in 1946, and so what we proposed in 2011 and voted out of the House was reforming Medicare for people below 55. I was 45 and now I'm 54, and so I'm close to that. So, and you could grandfather everybody in 55 and older. Now you could argue should it be 54, 56, whatever, but you pick a date. You could grandfather everybody in on the current program and have no changes on people that were promised that, and organize their retirement around it. And younger people have time to plan for the changes.
Because Ronald Reagan's also the fellow that moved the Social Security ages from 65 in retirement to 66 and a half, and et cetera.
Well, so the way you would do it, if you do it, is
That's not a bad concept.
the way you would do it is like.
I was aggravated when he did it because I was a whole lot younger.
Well,
It's a little closer now.
Well, the way you would do it, and only way I would vote for it, you wouldn't say if you're 65 and all of a sudden you're 7, if that's where the age you go to. So somebody 64 and 11 months ago, now I got to work 5 more years. The way they did it and the way it should be done is, so it goes up 65 in a month, 65 in 2 months. Over the course of a few years, it goes up to the age that's going to make it work. That's what I would look to do. But Medicare, the way that it is.
If we all study the history of it, though, you'll understand a little bit more about it. But it is,
But
gross national product, and that's what you usually compare the national debt to.
Well, it's a,
I think Judge Watt brings up a really good point, because during the 80s, under Reagan, his Secretary of Treasury was Don Regan, and he's the one that famously said, the debt doesn't matter. So does that apply today?
I don't think that applies. I think what the debt work
is what I'm trying to say.
Why do you think Don Regan, why do you think Don Regan said that?
I didn't follow it close to the 80s to know he even said that. I didn't know he said it, but I just think it's got to. The debt does matter. The debt does matter. And you can't, the problem is there's so many baby boomers are retiring. We've known it since the 1990s. We've known it since 1946 when they started having, when our parents came home from World War II and had more children. But nobody of either party tried to deal with it. I would say the House has tried to deal with it over the last 6 or 7 years, but nobody's really tried to deal with it.
Well,
and and the president has said, I'm just telling you, I've been in a meeting with some of his budget people that we're not going to adjust Social Security and Medicare.
well,
And so if you're not, that's tough to deal with the deficit.
Correct.
Let me make sure we got some folks in. I'll come back.
On this stuff about talking about, are all of these catastrophes and the hurricanes and all of that stuff is all budgeted?
Well, yeah, you have stuff that hits you that you got to spend money on you don't see coming to. That's not all, but it's money.
Well,
It's cash out.
You may have a balanced budget, but those things throw it out of kilk, don't they?
Well, the thing is, you can deal with that better if you do have a balanced budget. Because if you have a balanced budget and you got to spend $40 billion because of something happened in Florida and Texas, you're in a lot better position to do that if you're not borrowing $500 billion already. And it's probably going to go back to a trend because of the baby boomers retiring. And it was going to go back no matter, because it was starting coming down after the first couple of years of the previous president inherited a mess. Inherited an economy that was a mess. Deficits went to $1 trillion, if you remember. We started squeezing them back down till we got to about $400 billion. But it was gonna go back up regardless of what happened, just by the sheer number of baby boomers retiring. The sheer number. Let me catch here, and then I'm getting, yes?
Yeah, all these are great questions, and I wish we had a lot more time to talk about it, but my question is a whole lot different. I'd like to know your position, how you fall on protecting the Mueller investigation into Trump.
Well, I think it should continue till he gets, I think it should end sooner rather than later, but I think that he should, I know we're protecting the investigation, I think he should continue the investigation until he finds, if he finds anything. So far as we know, he's not really found anything. I mean, he hasn't.
Today, Trump came out and pardoned DeSish, is that his name?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he pardoned him. He's talking about pardoning or commuting the sentence of Blagojevich. He's talking about pardoning Martha Stewart, people that have nothing to do with what's going on in the Trump administration. Yet he's setting the ground rules to be able to pardon Cohen, Flynn, and some of those other cohorts.
Yeah.
And so if you don't stand up to him, there's nobody who's going to, because Congress is the only one that can do it now.
Well, I'll tell you, it's the mood of Congress that, for most people in Congress, that the Mueller investigation needs to continue until he gets to the right
He had his
The right conclusion.
right now.
Well,
It fired.
and the president's right to pardon is, President Obama pardoned Chelsea Manning, who sold American secrets and put American service people in harm's way, and pardoned him. So I mean, presidents you don't pardon people that didn't commit crimes.
Maybe Congress should change that rule. He should not have-
That's in the Constitution. Yeah.
Constitutional Congress.
Yeah, the right to pardon is absolute in the Constitution with the president. Yeah, I mean, it is, but most of us want,
Protect him?
huh?
Are you willing to protect the investigation?
I'm for the investigation to continue. The thing is, when you have an investigation like that, it depends on where, because I don't know any more insight on the Mueller investigation than what you see on TV. And you hear the stuff, he's going back to 2007 records and things like that. I think he needs to focus on, did we collude? I think the purpose of the investigation was there collusion with Russia or not on the election? And that's what it should focus on. I think that we should let that move forward on that. Hopefully that's what he's on. The good thing about Mueller's investigation, there's nobody in there leaking on it that I can tell. So I couldn't tell you what they're specifically focused on other than some of the things. So I think it needs to focus on Russian collusion. And when you do have a special counsel, I mean, look at the Clinton one. I mean, it just completely absorbs the West Wing and other things like that. And I think the president did, I don't read a lot of tweets, I'm not a tweeter, but I think he did tweet that he's going to now he's got to focus more on North Korea and other things and not Russia every day. So hopefully he will do that, because I think that we need to focus on the big issues. One is the national debt, the other things moving forward. But I think if Mueller can come back and prove that there was any collusion, he needs to do it. But I don't think it needs to linger. And I don't know what the timeline is, because I don't know what the investigations, I can't say it should be done by August 1st. I'm not saying that. But I think it needs to focus on collusion. It should be done sooner rather than later.
I think Mueller could come out and do it right now, but he's waiting, trying to make sure he's got all these ducks in a row.
Well, I think he should have all the ducks in a row if he's going to make any claims. Yeah. But I think I'm not for it stopping. I think it would be bad for it to stop, just like, all right, it's going to stop without coming to some kind of conclusion. Yeah. So you had it here, and we're going back. The mayor had you.
Yeah, I think it's funny, I attended several of these, and the questions were always about health care, and nobody's asked about health care tonight. Individual mandate is gone, the rest of it's still in place, but you were talking about Medicare being in danger. Would it actually possibly save Medicare if you were to allow young people, working people to buy into it, to put more money into the system?
Most people with Medicare think that wouldn't help Medicare if you allow people to buy into it. I know a lot of the groups that represent seniors aren't for opening Medicare to other folks. Medicare can be made whole. We just need to do it. And it's a promise we've made to people. I think it's 2026 now. I think it's 2026 is the estimate that the Medicare Trust Fund goes out. More money. So more money is going out of Medicare than people are putting in. And so we're just going to have to adjust it. We're going to have to live up to the commitments that people were made who organized their life and retired based on what was expected. But if we're going to tell a 22-year-old kid they're going to have the same issues, that's not me being honest and having them a country that they're going to be able to live in, because they're going to have 40 trillion. At some point, the debt's going to be so big. You mentioned Greece. I mean, we're approaching their financial balance sheet. Yeah, and so it can't continue forever. And young people are going to be worse off if we continue to focus.
I'm going to say something that I'm going to leave.
No, that's okay. You don't have to leave. This is supposed to be conversation. I like having it.
Well, I do too.
Yeah.
Is the concern at other county forums that you have about the national debt anything like it is here?
It hasn't been as prominent as
Well,
it is.
and were you, in your circles up there, are people, are they really, the last thing anybody.
I mean, our Senator Paul's probably one on the Senate side.
Well, I don't know, I'll give him credit, he's the only one that talks about that national debt. But when does it become the senators and the representatives' big deal? Is it going to be 66 trillion? Is that the number? Is it going to flip us out? I mean, there's got to be a number.
I would say from 2011 until after the first year of the Trump administration, it has been a top priority of the House.
Well,
I can tell you the House.
You don't hear it in the papers.
Well, you only.
I mean,
I will tell you that before. I'll tell you about the papers, and I love the papers, local papers and everything like that. But I will tell you, because I knew I was going to be doing these, so I started watching kind of both networks. So I don't really watch a lot of those news networks, cable news. And if you turn on the news today, I guarantee you're going to hear one of two things. You can turn on one network, and the entire network is going to be what Mueller's investigation is a fraud, is wrong, and whatever. And the other one is going to say there's definite collusion, it's all happened.
But Brett,
Mueller's
you're part of the society up there.
But they don't. I would not get on Fox News if I was talking about solving the deficit.
Now wait a minute.
They would not put you on.
Not just you, but if you hit about 100 with you, you mean the rest of the people aren't concerned like you are or me? They should be. The money that we pay on interest that could solve lots and lots of problems in this country, but there's no effort. The people out here that vote see there's no effort. There is none.
Well, there hasn't been one this last year, I can tell you. I agree that there hasn't been one this last.
Why shouldn't there be?
Well,
what do I got to? What does he got to do to get something going on?
Well, I'm there trying to fight it for you. I'm telling you.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. It's 21 trillion right now, and I'll bet you $1 to ever done that in the county. That in 2000, when Mr. Reagan. Trump gets elected, it'll be 3 trillion more, and the guy that gets in there 4 years after that, and you just can't keep in. It don't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican. It's going up.
Let me do that. Your point is exactly. This is how I view it. To solve something that big, there's going to be that big of issues. Members of Congress, you got Rand Paul every day talking about it. I've talked about it. Now I voted for the omnibus because I'm the military side. We were squeezing that side, but it takes, to my opinion, to get the country to go in a direction that's not popular, because every dollar spent in Washington has somebody that receives it, and it's popular to somebody, to sell it to the American people.
Well, that's exactly right. It goes back to my statement earlier. It takes the people in this country to get rid of that debt. It probably won't be you, but it'll be everybody in your district got you. You do it.
It takes people. To me, big issues that get solved at a national level at a big scale like that is when the president convinces the country that's the direction we need to go. And President Trump doesn't talk about that. He just doesn't. I'm going to admit it. He doesn't talk about
Mr. Obama didn't do it. Mr. Bush didn't do it.
I agree with you there.
I mean, if I got to do it, what do? Got to run for president?
Well, if you want to.
Well, no, I can. But we have these meetings right here. If everybody in this country, every single 350 million people got up and said, we want you all to get rid of this debt.
If 50% plus one of those 350 million said, this is my number one issue, the president will solve it tomorrow.
Well, when does it become that big issue?
Benjamin Franklin said, he goes, you give your republic if you can keep it. And then he said, when the public decides and learns it can vote itself to treasure, you're going to lose your republic. And are we there now with the baby boomers? This is what I've said. I don't want my generation to be the one that fulfills Benjamin Franklin's prophecy. And that's the path we're on. I'm agreeing with you.
This bill that for this tax cut, put my grandkids, they gotta pay that bill. I do not want that.
Let's look at the
And
map.
I voted for you.
Let's look at the map. I think you're gonna see different than.
Well, now I'll tell you what I'll do. You go back and check every budget that they did out of Frankfurt. They project, just like the arena down in Louisville, they project all this money that's gonna come in. Well, it never comes in. And every new money comes in, every senator and representative, they know it's coming in, and they're gonna get it before it's ever.
We'll see if the numbers are better than your quote. Let me grab some more.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your passion on it,
Well,
absolutely. But let me make sure I get some other,
well,
anybody else that wants to
okay.
talk about it. But anything?
I think, I have one question.
Okay.
So, when the Republicans were not in power in the House, you said up until when Trump took over, they were fiscally,
Well, 20s, okay, go ahead.
Right, there was
Hold on, put words in your mouth.
there's some like, but my situation is, it just seems like once every party, regardless, once they're in power, he's right. It's like, where is the fiscal conservatism in terms of just stop cut spending? I mean, look, I get the military, training desks, I get that, but how much military do we actually need? I mean, versus domestic spending, it just seems like it's just, there's just nonstop debt, and both parties don't stop it when they're in power, and they talk, it just seems like it's.
Yeah, so the point is, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is we were fighting, now that we have a president of our party, we're not? That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, we did focus on Medicare reform in the past, and to the point where we all got in our rooms, this is probably going to beat a lot of us if we vote for Medicare reform. And I see, if I can go out and sell to my constituencies that people younger are going to have a different system, and so people older can preserve what they have, then we probably deserve it. And I went to, first time we did the Paul Ryan Medicare, where you saw the commercials of him pushing the people over the side of a cliff when they had somebody dressed up to look like Paul Ryan. I went to a group and there was a bunch of people showed up. It was the Pritchard full. A lot of people were busting in from senior citizen places. So my first line says, if you're anybody over 55, please raise your hand. And everybody in there raised their hand, said, if you just raise your hand, what I'm going to say doesn't apply to you. And all of a sudden it was, okay. And so so we kept moving through that. So after President Trump got elected, we thought it was a good opportunity to actually sign into law reform of the healthcare system, and particularly the Medicaid that's bankrupting the state. It's the largest health insurance program in the world. Because we're talking about, I know you said you're a retired teacher, they were talking about the colleges and universities, this is state budget stuff, but colleges and universities in Kentucky have been cut state funding every year for the last 14 years, every budget for the last 14 years. Over the last 14 years, the Kentucky budget's gone from $14 billion to $22 billion. So we're spending a third more, but cutting the services most of us think that's, as a citizen, I think we should have better higher education, access to it, and not better, but access, or better too, but access to good education. And it's all going Medicaid, pensions that they're trying to resolve, but what the federal government, the Medicaid side, I mean, the state has to match what the federal government tells them to spend. Now, they have to kind of agree, but nobody's going to say, so expansion. So what we did is said, we're going to freeze everybody's Medicaid budget at what they have today. We'll let it grow for population, whether it goes down or goes up, and grow at inflation. Because medical care has grown far faster than inflation. And so we thought if we put a restraint on what the federal government spends, that will force the system to reform what it spends. Because the two things that grow faster than education, faster than typical inflation, is higher education, because it's got a lot of federal money, and healthcare, because it's got a lot of federal money. So we said if we put a restriction, that actually did pass the House, and when John McCain did 0 on the House, so that killed on the Senate floor, that killed it. But we did vote to reform that full program, $880 billion worth of savings over a 10-year window, actually. So,
but if you're cutting, okay.
We're not cutting, we're cutting, slowing the growth.
Okay, so let's take Medicaid in Kentucky first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Governor Bevan wants to cut Medicaid, the waiver program. He wants the people that are in the waiver program, he wants to make them work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's some people that may not be able to get work. that's gonna put strain on these emergency rooms, these local emergency rooms, because you're gonna have the same thing again, where you're gonna have these people using emergency care as primary care. They can't afford to go to primary care, so you're gonna have this whole cost thing go back up. It just, to cut, sometimes it just seems like it's costing more on the back end.
Well, that's the big debate. That gets to your solution. So you sit down and you say, okay, where's the money? Let's stop the growth of Medicaid. All right, let's stop the growth of Medicaid. Because of the number one issue is the debt. Well, then say, well, if you stop the growth of Medicaid, more people are going to show up in the emergency room, you're going to have disproportionate care, so that's going to grow. So that's the dilemma that you work with. Well, we think what Governor Bevin actually didn't do, because Kentucky expanded Medicaid on the governor's signature, previous governor's signature, so Governor Bevin could have undone it with the signature, but he didn't. So what he wanted to do, let's at least have a work requirement so people can work themselves off of it. That's what he wants to do, and it's a 20...
He's kind of blackmailing the judge in D.C. over the issue, because he's saying, if you don't go along with these work requirements, well, then I'm just going to pull the rug out from under the people.
Exactly, that's what he's...
So it's a blackmail.
But what he said...
I just think it's...
But I don't think it was blackmail that way. I think what he says...
Well, I'm sorry, extortionate.
Well, it says Kentucky... Well, think of how much... So when Governor Beshear expanded Medicaid, it was 100% federally funded. 100% federally funded. Now the state has to put money in because it was over a step down, and Governor Beshear knew the day that he left office he wasn't going to have to put any money into it. Now the current General Assembly, current governor, has to come up with the money for the Medicaid expansion. And what he's saying is, and I think it's fair, we'll keep the expansion, but we can't, we want people that are able-bodied that can work, go to work and work themselves off of it. I don't think that's an unfair proposition.
I just disagree with the process, and it's federally related because there's a law.
Yeah, but I don't think that's an unfair to let people, you lower Medicaid by people working themselves off of it.
I agree.
Yeah.
But don't say, okay, but if you don't go along with my work requirements, then I'm going to take this away from you anyway.
Well, the problem is the federal government wouldn't give him, so this really happened to the previous administration, the federal government would not give him any waiver to work people off of it. So he says, okay, if I can't get a waiver to work people off of it, I can't afford it. So we're just going to end the whole program. And so it was, so the people at the federal government were being, if you want to say, I don't want to use the word, but as you describe what Governor Bevin was doing, the federal government, the people at the CMS, called Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, were doing the same thing. And they wanted, so previously, Governor Pence, now Vice President Pence, was the governor of Indiana, and there was a lot of pressure to expand Medicaid from the hospital group. He goes, I'll expand Medicaid, but if I create this program that's an open-ended, one-size-fits-all program for everybody, we're going to go bankrupt as a state. I'll expand it, but I want to treat it like insurance, where people have some kind of premium, have some kind of copay, they have some skin in the game, because we're not talking about the elderly, disabled, or children. We're talking about adults that are able-bodied and can work. That's the population he's looking for. And when we had a hearing on the waiver, because his grandfather was Senator Kennedy, Joe Kennedy, who's a really good guy. As a matter of fact, I think his family has some kind of interest at Gethsemane, or has helped Gethsemane. Joe Kennedy, who's a good friend, just a wonderful guy, but he holds up as either Courier Journal or Lexington Herald Leader. It said Kentucky's Medicaid work rate will cost more money. You remember that? The headline is going to cost more money to do the work, really? And one of them said it's going to cost more money. So the story was correct, but the headline implied, and it gets to the point you're going to have to spend money to save money. The headline implied that he was going to spend more money anyway, so why do it? But what it went down into, what the governor is like, these wraparound services, get people job training, get people to work. So we're going to spend money up front to make sure people weren't just left out. Say, oh, you got to go work, go find a job. And as you said, it's 4% unemployment. Find a place to work. In our food stamp work proposal, each take, and there's like a 10% level. So let's say the governor could say, well, in Johnson County, there's 17% unemployment. I know there's negative unemployment in Bowling Green, but there's 17% in Johnson County. We're not going to put the work requirement in Johnson County. It gives them the authority to do that, to move that around. But you're going to have to spend some money up front to get people off. Because I don't think any of us want to just like turn people loose and say, sorry, you're just out there. Yeah. But we want to make sure they have the right skills and earn a good living. Because most people who go to work will be better off 5 years from now. And I'm going to say, they're getting the buzzer. I want to make sure but I appreciate your passion. I'm not dismissing it at all, believe me.
I still have about If I was to ask you, Mr. Guthrie, how would you get rid of the national debt?
You have to reform the entitlement side. You have to reform the growth and the entitlement side of the budget. That's what you have to do. I don't think you
Are
can
you
get,
sure that's the only way?
I think that's
There's,
the way to do it. I mean, I don't, no matter what this tax deal does, the sheer volume of baby boomers retiring you just can't grow out of it. It's just a massive amount of demographics moving through the population. They're born in 1946, ended in 1964. When I retire, there'll be more people retired. I think 1.5 people work into one retired. And that's just not sustainable. That's why I say you have to fix
okay,
it.
let me ask you this. Your colleagues, like the same people, the representatives in other districts around the state, do you have a consensus meeting on what we all talk about? What they talked about?
I have mine. I mean, I'm not sure, but mine are different based on county. Who shows up in each county, who doesn't show up. It's just been different.
Well, I guess you know what my number one concern is.
And I appreciate that. And it's.
I mean, I've been dealing with this since 1980. 2080, are we still going to have this thing?
I don't think we'll last that long.
But see, here's the thing about everybody, all you followers are not dumb. You're smart, educated people. And most people in here are. Why can't they see the benefits of not having that?
Well, I saw Steve Ratner on MSNBC one time talking to a couple of friends of mine who are in kind of the moderate Democrat category. And they were talking about something about how we can solve it. And he goes, you talk about Republicans being not understanding science. You guys don't understand math. I mean, the math is there. The math's the math. But it has to be addressed. And I'm just saying this, and I really believe it. I can get up and come to all these town halls and say exactly what I'm telling you, whatever, it's not going to be easy, because which is what you said. If you say we're going to start cutting here, well, what about all the people going to worse? So I'm just saying,
never ever be our debt will never be gotten rid of if nobody or the Congress don't have a plan.
Well, we have a plan.
There is no plan.
But the point is to sell it. Well, you won't
what the people in this country, they don't think the Congress is doing what the people want, and let's get the major things and deal with them.
I agree with
If
that.
they say that that's $21 trillion.
I'll tell you, I'm just as disappointed in you, or not as happy. I'm not disappointed. Never disappointed in the people you represent. But if you were to poll the national debt, I bet it doesn't show up fourth or fifth on the list.
But you know why?
But you're saying the American people are not clamoring for the change, and we're not listening to it.
Well,
we know it's there, so we need to fix it.
Well,
that's not. But anyway, let me. Anything else that you got?
I'm afraid we didn't have to go. Room. We had to dismiss.
Oh, we got to get out of the room. So on the Mueller, I'm for that to continue and to go into its right. I know in the rightful and see what comes out of it, and then have to see now. As far as I know, nothing. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, then I know we got to do the rooms. Thank you.
Charlie Hobart.
Yeah, Charlie Hobart. We'll be seeing you guys.
How much would it cost me to?